Thank you for being here. As Lori said, I'm a professional, right? I mean, this is my gig. Is I get to talk about autism. I get to talk about neurodiversity. But this is also personal because I'm going to be talking about some near and dear diagnoses, and I'm going to be going pretty fast because I don't want to put you to sleep. I will be sending out this PowerPoint, and my hope is that it's going to be something useful for you. That today you're going to walk away and say, oh, I have some new perspective. I have some new tools in my toolbox. And if you can say that when you get out of here, then I've succeeded, and hopefully this will be something that'll be worth your time. Because there's nothing worse than spending 3 hours at a training and going, I don't know how my life is going to be any different at all from this. But we all have to do it to keep our license and stuff, right? I've titled this Celebrating Neurodiversity. And I mean, who's heard me talk before? Lots of people. Anybody? I was on anybody hear that podcast I was on with Debbie Worthen last month? No? You guys too busy for podcasts? Okay, good. That's good. No, okay, good. Well, hopefully, again, if you still heard me and want to keep hearing me, that's great. But I sincerely believe, and I will keep saying over and over again, how much it's important for us to celebrate the differences in the minds of the people that we work with and that we serve. Because every life deserves to be celebrated. And every person, regardless of their neurological functioning, deserves to have people in their corner saying, yes, you're great, and these are wonderful things about you, and you're going to do some amazing things in the world. Okay, whatever that happens to be. Now, we have a lot of incredibly successful people at very high levels who are starting to talk about being neurodiverse now, right? We have Olympic athletes, and we've got the world's richest man coming out as autistic, and we've got Miss Americas and talent show people, and we've got dyslexic ADHD people like Whoopi Goldberg, who is also one of the only people on the planet with an Emmy, an Oscar, and a Grammy. And a Tony. She's got the whole 4 of them. As Sir Richard Branson says, the guy who started commercial space flight, you should never see being different as a flaw or think that something is wrong with you. Being different is your biggest asset and will help you succeed. I know you'll have problems, but this does not mean you're lazy or dumb. You just think in a more creative way. Use your alternative ways of thinking to be creative and think bigger. And I'm going to be pretty autism focused today, but autism is just one type of neurodiversity. As I was talking with Lori and others, I know that you guys work with a lot of these and also lots of others, but who in here has got on their caseload people on the autism spectrum? Okay, pretty much everybody. What about learning disabilities or processing disorders? Almost everybody. We've got some of the genetic conditions like Downs or Prader-Willi, okay? And things like dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, so the learning disabilities, ADHD, right? And these are all pretty serious things, and I don't want you to think that I'm just rah-rah, everything's wonderful. I know it is a challenge, and you guys more than anybody know how challenging it is because you're working with these individuals at the most challenging point of their lives. So I want to emphasize that. You're working with them at the most challenging point of their lives. That elementary through high school is really the most challenging point of most people's lives, but definitely for those who are neurodiverse and often developmentally delayed because of that. And there's obviously communication problems, and that's what you guys are specializing in, but we have so many problems, so many things that make it a challenge, and I'm not trying to diminish that. But I am saying we look at it too much, right? For those of us who diagnose neurodiversities, they come from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. And I'm not sure how speech disorders are diagnosed. I don't remember if they're in the DSM or not, but they're definitely diagnosed by you guys with all of your wonderful assessments. And all of these assessments, all of these diagnostic tools, what do they focus on? Just the challenges, right? It's always the weaknesses. And yet we all have weaknesses, right? Somebody give me a skill that you just don't have. Could be whatever it is. Math. Okay, how many other people in here are like math? I got into speech therapy so I wouldn't have to do math. Okay, good. What was another one?
I don't sing.
Don't sing. Okay, so we got math and we've got singing. How many other non-singers do we have in here? Okay, we will not be doing karaoke, which makes me happy. But honestly, could you imagine if we got up every single day and we said, all right, whew, those math weaknesses, you know what? We've got to work on this. And so all day long, every day, it was, we're going to have this many hours of addition and this many hours of subtraction and this many hours of multiplication. And then we're going to move on and we're going to start doing fractions and all that. And if you had a tutor and you worked on that all day long, or if you were had a voice coach and you worked on singing all day long, every day, would you get better? Yeah, over time you probably would. But could you imagine if all day, every day was like, oh, well, you're still struggling. Yep, you're still behind everybody on math. You're still not as good at singing as, so-and-so. So we're going to keep working on this and working on this. Can you imagine how discouraging it would be? And yet this is often the day for children with special needs and even young adults with special needs. And even at my school that I run, there's a lot of this. And so what I want to get us away from is, yes, it is challenging. And the challenges need to be addressed insofar as they're getting in the way of our strengths. Do you need to spend your life mastering math? No, because you've made it. You're fine, right? Do you need to become an opera singer? No, you don't. I have a disability where if you throw me a ball, I will drop that ball, okay? It's not going to happen. And if I spent the rest of my life working on basketball, I'm never going to be anything more than a very mediocre basketball player. And that's okay. It's not going to matter. My weaknesses do not define me, and not only do they not define me, they're really not important, except as they get in the way of my functioning in the life I want to have. Weaknesses only matter as they get in the way of function. So, it's, again, spending all day on stuff we're not good at is totally depressing, and yet this is how neurodiversity gets approached. It's, oh, let me tell you, your child, we're diagnosing them with this, this, and this means all of these challenges, probably these challenges. And the horror stories that parents have heard, how many in here have a child or sibling or family member with a neurodiversity of some kind? Okay, about half. And you've been told terrible things. Oh, they may never talk, they may never walk, they may never this, because doctors have to list all of those challenges and tell you all these terrible things. And yet again, how depressing, how discouraging, we treat it as if it's a tragedy. As Temple Grandin says, there is, with neurodiversity, too much emphasis on the deficits and not enough on the strengths. And so over the last 10 years or so, the neurodiversity movement has really risen as kind of a civil rights movement that says that, yeah, having a neurodiversity like autism or ADHD, it could be a disability. But that's largely because the world is not built for people like that. Okay? Picking on my wife again, my wife is 5'0" nothing. Okay? She is the reason that on the shelf in the grocery stores, there's that sign that says, please ask for assistance with items on the top. Because she will like climb up on the shelf to get the thing off of the shelf there, because the world is not built for short people, right? People who are outside of the statistical norms, the world isn't built for them. The world is built for the majority. And because of that, yeah, things become a disability. Not because there's anything inherently bad with them, just that they're different. But neurodiversity also needs to be viewed as a natural and valuable part of human variation and doesn't have to be pathological. It can be something actually really helpful in some ways. And maybe just as critical for the human race as biodiversity. So I keep saying neurodiversity. Neuro means brain, diversity means different. So we all have unique and different brains, right? Duh. And of course, everybody is neurodiverse to some degree or another. All of us are. Because no two brains are exactly alike. It's not like there's some brain in a jar at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. that's like, this is a normal brain, and all brains must be compared. No, it doesn't exist, right? So a neurotypical is someone whose brain falls into that standard deviation. Neurodivergent, then, people who fall outside of that. Neurodiversity is this idea of people who fall outside, and those whose brains are typical are the neuromajority. Those of us with different brains are neurominority. And as Jerry Newport says, I know of nobody who is purely autistic or purely neurotypical, because even God has autistic moments, which is why the planets spin. Okay? We all of us are a little neurotypical and a little neurodiverse, and it's great. It's our diversity in our minds that brings us creativity and brings us all of our imagination and our ways to stand out in good ways, right?